What's going on, you guys? TBR here, and before we get into today's video, there are a few in-game events that are ending today that I need to make sure you guys are aware of. So for those of you who have not been keeping track at home, the Fight in Search of the Self K and Kula Rush dungeon is going to be going away later on today, so 13 hours from the time that I'm making this video, these things will be going away. Make sure if you guys have not already done so, you go ahead and do your daily runs for these so that way you get that juicy 100 rubies today. Also keep in mind, if you guys are wondering, the exchange shop will be sticking around for 7 days. However, the actual rush dungeon itself will be going away from 13 hours from the time I am recording this. Another thing that's going to be ending today is going to be the KOF Battle Pass, so make sure if you guys were planning on picking that up, today is the last day you can do that. And then finally, all of the banners for the SS Volume 1 rerun, as well as the SS Volume 3 banners, are going to be ending today as well. So if there's any of these cards on here, like the Kula option card, or any of the finishers that you are needing for any of these characters, or if you're still needing any extra memories for these characters, you'll need to make sure that you invest today, otherwise they will be going away. But with all that being said, if you guys are planning on pulling, good luck, and let's go ahead and get into today's video. What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters Allstar video. And in today's video, we are going to be continuing our ongoing series, taking a special look at the Unified Banner and breaking it down color by color and giving new players, beginners, intermediates, free-to-plays, and budget players recommendations, as well as just some overall tips and guidance on which characters on here are going to be useful for them across a plethora of PvE modes. So before we get into today's second installment in this series, make sure if you guys are new here and you haven't already done so and you enjoy daily King of Fighters All-Star content such as this, you smash that like button and subscribe. And in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the blue element. For those of you who missed yesterday's video, which was the purple element, link will be in the description. Now, as previously mentioned, and as you guys can see on screen, we are going to be talking about the blue element in today's video. Now, of course, the blue element isn't necessarily as stacked as some of the other colors that we are going to be talking about in these videos this week. However, there are some hidden gems in here that we are going to point out. But the first thing that you'll want to know as a beginner, an intermediate, a new player, or a budget player that is just getting into the game, basically, the blue defensive type characters are going to be very useful for high levels of Reviving Hell's dungeon, and the first character we're going to talk about just so happens to be a blue defensive type, and that is going to be Leona Hydern. So this Leona here is actually very, very good. She's going to be a blue defensive type, which, as we just mentioned, is very good for high levels of Reviving Hell's dungeon, and she's also going to have a leadership skill that largely you can ignore. That isn't necessarily going to be anything that is super interesting. However, one thing about her that is pretty good is the fact that she does have the Orochi clan tag, as well as female and defensive type fighter tags, so she will slot into a decent amount of teams. But really with Leona here, there are several reasons as to why you would want to go ahead and pick her up. So the first thing is going to be the fact that she does boast double venom on her kit. This is something that's very interesting because typically whenever you see these characters that are going to be one dot dedicated, they're typically going to either have just a normal dot application and a tier 2 dot application for that specific dot, or they are going to have double dot applications in the form of your normal dot apps. But she has double venom, which is really, really cool. She's also going to have an extremely good striker ability where she's going to be able to give you 10% power and deal venom, so that is also going to be very useful for your characters that you want to use in things such as Guild Raid against Nightmare Geese, wherever you need poison there, and you don't necessarily have a good dedicated poison user for that, because she isn't necessarily going to do the most amount of work in the world against Nightmare Geese. But if you put her on striker with a better character for shield shred and damage, then that is going to allow you to be able to get through that and get that score that you need. But in general, this character has a lot going on for her. She does have explosion on her poison, which is something you need to keep in mind. Not necessarily ideal, especially when you are looking at things such as guild raid and so on and so forth, but largely in guild raid, normally you're going to be using her as a striker for a stronger character as mentioned. But in general, this is a really good little character. For those of you out there that need a good dedicated poison wielder, this is probably going to be your best option as a free-to-play account, because this character is going to be able to do quite a bit for you, being a blue defensive type in endgame material, and in general this is still a pretty fairly well built character. So the first one that I felt I should point out here is going to be Leona Hydern. But speaking of Leona, we are now going to segue and talk about another Leona, which is going to be Orochi Leona. Now with Orochi Leona here, she's a pretty interesting character, but when you take a look at her on the surface with a blue balance type with a leadership skill that really isn't anything all that important, neither of these things are going to be working to her benefit. But then when you take a look at her tags as a boss fighter, an Orochi clan member, and a female fighter, these are all things that are going to allow her to slot in and work very well with a lot of your other characters. Now in general with Orochi Leona, part of the reason why you would want to use her is for the fact that she is going to be a character that is going to deal shock damage, and she's also going to have some, in general, really good little skills here. Now this character of course is going to be Unified Banner FES, so she's not going to necessarily be the greatest character in the world as far as a plethora of different things, but in general, as far as the blue element is concerned with the Unified Banner, she is one of the characters that most recently got a buff, and that helped her out quite a bit. So really with this character, when you take a look at her, she does have a pretty nice little kit, being the fact that on her cores she can decrease her base cooldowns of all of her active skills, she recovers her HP by 3.7% of her damage dealt and deals 3 times of the target's remaining shock damage, and blows up the shock whenever she crits. So this is a pretty good little character. I would definitely say that she is useful. She's going to have a 3PG finisher, which is really nice, and in general this is just going to be a nice little option for blue. So pretty much both Leonas are going to be very good, although I would definitely give the edge to the normal Leona Hydern. But then again, none of these recommendations are in necessarily any particular order. But the next character I want to talk about is going to be Zero Original. So Zero Original is also another character that recently got buffed, and he has quite a bit going for him. He is going to be a blue attack type with the Nest tag, an attack type fighter tag, and the boss fighter tag. So these are all going to be very good things for him when it comes to him being able to work well with other teams. However, when it comes to Zero, his utility is a little bit limited. He is going to in general be one of the best overall just general mobbers in the game. So against normal waves, this is going to be a really good character. He's also going to be very good for things such as time attack as a result, but largely the reason why he is relegated to his duties as being just a overall general bosser and mobber is because he doesn't really have any dots to speak of on his kit. However, he does have some really good skill animations, as well as some generous XY axis and some good range. So this is a really good little character if you just need a character to get you through things like story mode or advent dungeons or whatever the case may be. However, again, keep in mind that his utility does fall off of a cliff because he doesn't have any dots, and he does have 3 PG finishers in the game. However, one of them is locked behind Epic Quest Chapter 2, and then of course the other is a Boss Syndrome card that's no longer available, so you'll be stuck with the 5 PG for now. But that is Zero, pretty good little character overall. Now from here, I want to talk about a couple more characters, and then we can go ahead and call it quits for the blue element. So the next character I want to talk about is Winter Love Messenger Goro, who is undoubtedly the weirdest character we're going to talk about on here. But when it comes to Winter Love Messenger Goro, he is also a blue defensive type, which again is very good for high levels of reviving Hell's Dungeon. He has a leadership ability that increases the attack of all fighters by 45% and decreases their HP by 5%. So that's not necessarily too bad, meaning he can be a good budget leader, I suppose. But really with his kit, the reason why you'd want him is he does have venom damage. He also has a nice freeze on there for CC, and then he's also going to have an okay-ish striker skill, I guess, but really not worth mentioning. When you take a look at his cores, in my opinion, this is where his kit starts to struggle a little bit, because he does have some wonky cores like that recovering HP by 1% every 1 second for 5 seconds when attacked while burned. But in general, this this is a good little character. I don't necessarily think it's one that you should go out of your way for. However, if you want a character for a blue defensive type that is a good downgrade from Leona, then this is a good option. But really, when it comes to the characters that we're going to talk about from here forward, there really isn't a lot of value here as far as a lot of different game modes, but this is a generally good little character, so if you end up getting him randomly, don't think that you ended up getting completely shafted, because he isn't too bad. But that's going to do it for the main characters I wanted to talk about in this video, because really there is a steep drop off from here when it comes to the quality of these characters. So really, I feel like we've gotten the main ones out of the way. However, there's a couple that I guess you could throw in as honorable mentions alongside like Goro, but really I guess if I had to do so, the first one that I would take a look at from there would be this Rio, because this Rio is actually a pretty good little damage dealer for being a budget character. He has a really good leadership ability that you could use in a lot of different things. He is going to have Cold Spell on his kit, which is really nice because chill apps are generally going to be a little bit on the rarer side for attack-based characters, and he does have some decent overall cores, so he is a good little character. He's just not one that I would necessarily go out of my way for, but if you end up with him, he is worth building just for that leadership ability, as well as that damage output for a budget character. And then outside of him, I suppose this Summer Night Mature you could make a case for, being the fact that she is going to be a fairly offensive chill-based unit. However, again, there are better options out there, and I would say that really she is a character that is really just going to be one, if you end up with her, you may consider, but again, not one I'd go out of my way for. And then from there, the rest of these characters I would just wholesale skip. Of course, Yashiro, best character in the game. I mean, worst character in the game, sorry. And then Rock Howard here, as much as I love Rock Boy, not very good. And then don't fall for Mukai. I know a lot of players out there that are brand new might fall for him because he looks cool, but he's really not going to be a very good PvE character, and you'd be better off just skipping him. So in the end, you guys, I guess if I had to recommend one character above all for your initial rate up, then it would be the normal Leona Hydern, because she is going to offer the most versatility and also be useful in endgame material. And then from there you can kind of just pick your favorites, but Orochi Leona, Original Zero, Rio, Christmas Love Messenger Goro, all of those are good options for various reasons we've already talked about, so it's up to you from that point. But I do think that Leona is definitely the pick of the litter when it comes to all of these. But I'm curious to see what you guys think. Let me know in the comments section down below. I know everybody has differing opinions as far as all of these characters are concerned, but I have all of them pretty well built up and have used them all at length, so those are just my opinions, and we'll leave it at that. But if you enjoyed the video and found it informative, smash that like button and subscribe. If you're planning on going in on these SS banners, good luck on your pulls, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video. You all take care. Peace.